Hi, I'm Pat, and this is the Deep Dive.
And I'm Jesse. Welcome to our deep dive.
We're here to cut through all the noise, really distill the key insights from, well, a whole stack of sources.
And hopefully give you that aha moment,
Mhm.
something useful and maybe even a bit surprising.
Think of us as your guides, helping you get truly well-informed fast.
Today, we're diving deep into something absolutely fundamental to being human, our emotions.
Right, these powerful, often kind of mysterious forces that shape everything, our inner world, how we interact.
But how often do we really stop and think about why we have them? What's their actual purpose?
Exactly. So we've gathered some really fascinating material. We've got psychological studies, philosophical takes.
And some incredibly brave, very personal stories of recovery and self-discovery, too.
Our mission today is really to unpack what emotions truly are, why we have them.
And crucially, how understanding them can maybe unlock some personal growth and deeper connections for you.
Okay, let's get into it then. We all feel emotions, obviously. But beyond just feeling sad or happy, what's really going on underneath?
Well, what's truly compelling, I think, is how deeply emotions are embedded in our actual survival.
Not just feelings, then.
No, not at all.
Yeah.
For a long time, they were seen as, chaotic or irrational,
Yeah.
separate from our logical mind.
Right, like they get in the way.
But that view is really changing. Philosophers, scientists, they increasingly see them as fundamental parts of our mental life. They're critical to the quality, the meaning of our existence. One source even said they make life worth living and sometimes worth ending. That's powerful.
Wow, yeah.
And Charles Darwin, for instance, he believed emotions are adaptations, honed over millennia.
Adaptations, like tools for survival.
Exactly, to help us survive and reproduce. It shifts the perspective, doesn't it?
It really does. So they're not just abstract feelings, they're active. They do something.
Precisely. They motivate us to respond quickly to what's happening around us. Think about fear.
Makes you run away from danger.
Right. Or disgust. Stops you eating spoiled food.
Okay.
Even anger, which gets a bad rap. It motivates us to defend resources, or maybe challenge something unfair.
So it's about improving our chances, fundamentally.
Yes.
Yeah.
Imagine encountering, say, a hissing animal.
Okay, yeah.
That clear emotional display. The hiss, the posture, it signals aggression,
Yeah.
defensiveness.
You know instantly.
Your brain processes that emotional intent like that, prompting you to back off, avoid harm.
Without even thinking about it.
That rapid, almost subconscious understanding shows just how vital emotions are for immediate decisions, for self-preservation.
It's like this instant information feed. So, okay, they help us, but you mentioned communication too.
Absolutely. They are a profound form of communication.
Yeah.
Internally, they're like private readouts telling us how we're evaluating things.
Our internal state.
Yes. But then, crucially, they translate that state into a language others can grasp.
Through facial expressions, tone of voice.
Exactly. Verbal cues, nonverbal cues, posture, everything. It makes you realize emotions aren't just for us. They're a kind of language.
A universal language, maybe.
Largely, yes. Think about how much we convey without a single word. Paul Ekman's work on basic facial expressions.
Happiness, sadness, anger.
Fear, disgust, surprise. They're recognized across cultures.
Mm.
Now, when and how intensely we show them, that varies. Cultural display rules.
Ah,
But the basic recognition seems built in.
And sometimes that nonverbal stuff is incredibly powerful, like road rage.
Oh, good example.
You see someone getting cut off, their frustration, their anger. It just seems to spread, doesn't it? Escalates things super fast.
It does. It's a rapid-fire emotional exchange, often without a word spoken. The message is crystal clear, though.
Yeah, which brings us to another really interesting point you mentioned earlier, the stories we tell ourselves about these feelings.
Yes, this is crucial because often, the source points out, the real pain isn't the feeling itself.
But the difficult stories we attach to them.
Exactly. And we tell ourselves all sorts, don't we?
Oh, definitely. Like, this feeling is wrong, or I shouldn't feel this way, other people have it worse. That invalidation thing.
Or thinking a feeling is too big for the situation, so I must be dramatic.
Or too small, meaning I'm insensitive.
Right. And the belief that strong feelings are inherently bad or a sign of weakness.
And that specific one for men, where certain feelings like sadness are seen as unmasculine.
Which leads to suppression, often with really negative consequences. And it begs the question, why do we do this? Why create these narratives?
Yeah, why?
Well, these stories often hide underneath the emotion. They create, as one source put it, distorted ways that we think about the feeling.
So it's not just fear.
It's, I'm afraid, and that means I'm not strong enough, or I'm failing because I feel this way.
Ah, so you layer judgment or shame on top of the original feeling.
Precisely. And that makes it so much harder to process the actual emotion.
Which probably fuels a lot of common myths about emotions, right?
Yeah. Definitely. Like the idea they're just a weakness. Or that negative feelings will just escalate infinitely if you acknowledge them.
Or that emotions like anger are just bad, destructive.
But these are mostly myths. It's usually not the emotion itself that's destructive. It's the behavior that might come from it if we don't manage it well.
That's a key distinction.
And emotions don't just pop up for no reason. They aren't useless noise.
So even the painful ones, they have value.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
They can be uncomfortable, even intensely painful, but they can be tolerated, especially with practice.
Yeah,
And they provide incredibly useful information.
like warning signals.
Exactly. Identifying what we like or dislike, what feels threatening, what we value, and then they prepare us for action.
You know, it reminds me of physical pain, like touching a hot stove.
Okay.
You feel that burning, that pain. It's unpleasant, obviously.
Great.
But is it good you felt it?
Yeah.
Yes. It made you pull your hand away instantly. Prevented a worse burn.
Ah, I see the analogy. The pain-motivated protective action.
Right. And unpleasant emotions can do the same. Anxiety about a deadline isn't bad. It's a signal.
Motivating you to prepare, perhaps.
Yeah, study more, ask for help. Leading to a better outcome, hopefully. The discomfort is just information.
Information prompting constructive action.
Yeah.
That leads us nicely into the relationship between emotions and rationality.
Which is often seen as this big conflict, right? Emotion versus logic.
Traditionally, yes, but that's being reevaluated. Emotions deeply influence our decisions, even when we think we're being purely logical.
It's not just a soft skill then, emotional intelligence.
Far from it. There's solid research showing people with brain damage affecting their emotional capacity.
Their logic is fine, but
They struggle to make good real-life decisions.
Yeah.
They can't feel the weight of consequences, even if they understand them intellectually.
wow, so you need the emotional input to really weigh things properly.
It seems so. And recent research really confirms this interplay between emotional and cognitive processes, especially when things are ambiguous or risky.
It's not one or the other.
No, it's a dynamic dance. Studies even link personality traits like emotional stability or conscientiousness to different ways of processing emotional versus cognitive information when making choices.
Different styles, not necessarily better or worse.
Exactly. Our emotional landscape inherently shapes how we decide.
It really challenges that old idea that emotions are inherently irrational.
It does. Philosophically, you can even talk about the rationality of emotions,
How so?
based on things like fittingness. Is the emotion directed at something appropriate? Is fear aimed at something genuinely dangerous
Okay.
and warrant? Is there relevant evidence supporting the emotion, even if that evidence later turns out wrong?
Makes sense.
And then there's coherence. Do our emotions generally align with our other beliefs?
Usually they do, right? I
Yeah.
mean, we all know those recalcitrant emotions, like being scared of flying even though you know it's safe.
Right, those exist. But often, if a belief changes, the emotion follows suit.
That's so true. Like, if I'm furious at Tom because I believe he badmouthed me, that anger is probably going to just evaporate.
Yeah.
The second I find out he actually didn't say anything bad at all.
Exactly. The emotion updates with the new information. It's logical in that sense.
Fascinating.
And beyond just being logical responses, emotions can be deeply strategic. They help solve the commitment problem.
The what now?
The commitment problem, convincing others you'll actually follow through on promises or even threats. Genuine emotion signals real commitment.
Ah, okay. Like, if someone gets genuinely angry when a promise is broken, you trust them more next time.
It can build that kind of trust, yes. It signals they take commitments seriously. And emotions are also crucial for what's called epistemic thinking.
Thinking about thinking. Or knowing.
Sort of, guiding our quest for knowledge. Think
Yeah.
about curiosity, interest, even doubt. These are epistemic emotions, pushing us to learn, question, seek truth.
So they drive our understanding of the world.
In many ways, yes. Which leads us to how we experience and share these emotions, especially the difficult ones.
And the power of sharing those journeys. I was really struck by the Headsky's resource you mentioned.
Oh, yes. So powerful.
Over 100 recovery stories from men who faced depression, anxiety, suicidal thoughts.
And their core message is just so clear and vital. Recovery is possible. You are not alone.
It really counters those myths about weakness we talked about earlier.
Absolutely. And what's amazing is how storytelling itself becomes a crucial part of healing.
How does that work?
Well, sharing allows people to take ownership of their experience. To see that suffering doesn't discriminate. These stories are from students, fathers, first responders, athletes, everyone.
Right, it normalizes it, shows you're not isolated.
And it makes them a source of hope for others. Gary's story had that line.
Oh yeah, sometimes you only need one thing for your brain to latch onto.
And motivate you to help you get out of a bad situation.
Yeah.
It's about finding that connection, that spark.
And the act of sharing itself, it provides catharsis, a release.
Definitely. A liberation of emotion, a renewed sense of self. Plus, it opens the door for empathy from others.
Which helps with self-acceptance, like Lisa's story.
Where she said it was the first time she really got it all out, leading to more self-compassion, just being truly heard.
Such a powerful thing.
Now, while that kind of vulnerability, sharing deep emotional experiences, is incredibly powerful for building intimacy and trust.
There's a but coming.
Well, just a nuance. It's important to remember it's one tool in our social toolkit, not the only one.
Meaning it's not always the right time or place to let it all hang out.
Exactly. It's not always appropriate or even advisable with everyone we meet. Discernment is key.
You can connect in other ways, too. I liked that example of connecting over an NFL team hat.
Right. No deep secrets revealed there.
No, just shared identity, shared excitement. Still a connection.
It highlights the need to gauge the situation. When is it right to go deep and be open-hearted?
Versus when is it more about joking around or just having familiar, comfortable interactions?
It's about choosing the right approach for the moment, for the person, not seeing vulnerability as this universal requirement for all connection.
That's a really helpful distinction. And speaking of navigating difficult stuff, let's touch on anger again. Jeremy Jojola's reflections were quite stark, calling anger a virus.
Suggesting angry people are often hurting and might maybe unconsciously want to spread that feeling.
Yeah. And his point about anger being addictive, angertainment.
Oof, yes. That resonates, doesn't it?
It really does. You see it online constantly. Rage becoming this business model. Clicks and shares driven by outrage. It's pretty sobering.
It is. And his journey towards peace involved forgiveness.
Yeah.
Especially self-forgiveness.
Acknowledging the anger, but not letting it run the show.
Right. Not letting it control your actions. And if we connect this wider inner peace, isn't necessarily the absence of anger or bitterness.
What is it then?
It's more like the accepting of it while pushing on to create positivity despite it.
That feels very stoic, actually.
Accepting it's there, but choosing your response. Exactly. Acknowledge the feeling, don't deny it, but don't let it dictate your behavior uncontrollably.
And ultimately, maybe even anger has its place, a necessary place.
It seems so. When controlled, when channeled constructively?
It can motivate positive change.
Absolutely. Advocating against wrongs through civil conversation, collective activism for justice. It's about taking that energy.
That raw energy.
And directing it towards something good,
Yeah.
rather than letting it just consume you or lash out.
So what a journey we've taken today, eh? Through this incredibly complex, vital world of emotions.
We've seen they're far more than just feelings. They're sophisticated, adaptive, deeply human.
Understanding them really helps us navigate the world, make better choices.
And connect with others more meaningfully. Plus, seeing the healing power of sharing our stories.
Building that community and finding self-acceptance.
So at the end of the day, what does this mean for you listening? Well, those stories we tell ourselves about our emotions.
They can be shackles or they can be keys.
Precisely. Keys to understanding, growth, maybe even liberation. It's about seeing the truth of what you feel and gently challenging those old, unhelpful narratives.
And holding on to that idea from Rihanna's story. You are part of something bigger, and you will find ways to relate to people and to the world.
Beautiful reminder. And as we wrap up, maybe something to ponder.
Oh, okay. Leave us with a thought.
If emotions really are this fundamental information system, evolved for survival, what new emotional adaptations or maybe new ways of using our emotional intelligence might we need? Especially to thrive in this increasingly complex, super connected world we live in now. How does our emotional landscape need to evolve next?
That's a big question to chew on. We really hope this deep dive has given you some fresh insights, maybe a different lens for your own emotional world.
Thank you so much for joining us today.
It's been a great conversation.
It really has. We'd genuinely love for you to come back for our next deep dive. If you enjoyed this, please do like, share it, leave a comment.
We really do value your thoughts and appreciate you being here.
We do.
Until next time, take care.
Goodbye, everyone.